Hello and welcome along to another Talking Sport episode and a US PGA preview of golf's second major of the year. And it's Daniel here, joined alongside me as always by my brother Sean.
How's it going?
Not too bad, Sean. I'm delighted to have a star A-list panel developed for the US PGA, and hopefully we'll pick the winner this week for once in a golf preview here in Talking Sport. But delighted to welcome Paddy from PaddyTalks Golf. Paddy, how are you?
How are you doing? I'm pretty creative with the names. Nice to join a show that's not that is more creative than me.
Yeah, marginally, I think. Well, a little bit more creative name here. So it's delighted to welcome Shane O'Connell, founder of Talk Birdie, to me. So Shane, welcome to the podcast again.
Thanks very much, lads. Great to be back and chat more golf again. We know four lads here very excited for the week ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess it's the Masters is for the public and everyone else. I guess this week is probably, out of all the majors, the one for us golf nerds to really kind of like focus on. But Paddy, I suppose, where does this rank the PGA in the four majors? It's obviously probably the fourth most coveted one, but I guess it's something to look forward to, particularly given the stars of the field this week.
Like any major, it's the who's who of golf, aside from those injured. So Tiger Woods won't be there and Matthew Wolff won't be there, but everybody else is going to be there. Where would it rank in the majors? Fourth, obviously. In my book anyway. I suppose in a lot of people's books it would be. For Jordan Spieth, it's possibly number one at the moment. We might get into that. Yeah, like in terms of roar and atmosphere, like they moved it on the schedule so that it might get a bit more, I suppose, following. It was always like the fourth major, the last one, and it always kind of threw up like a random winner, and that still kind of might be the case. But yeah, fourth, and like I'd be saying, the Players is almost a stronger event, as the fifth major. But that's a bit controversial. But yeah, that wouldn't be like me to be controversial.
No, it's a good start, but I think Wai Yang comes to mind when you say surprise winner straight away. Like just the first thing I thought of. But yeah, exactly. The list could go on and on, but like I suppose Shane, you'd agree with that. And interesting what Paddy said about the move to May, and obviously that happened just before COVID. I think it was 2019 was the first year before they moved it to May, but I guess that's probably made it marginally more important given its place in the calendar now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Paddy when you were saying it kind of gets forgotten about when it was in August. And I suppose it's a bit of a different major for just so many PGA pros in America do get into it. So there's a bit of added hype for them locally. Then for us, obviously, at the other side of the pond, we'd love to see another major to be moved out of America, I suppose, and visit. Obviously, we're going to be biased with the Irish courses, but there is so many. Even you look at Royal Melbourne that had the President's Cup, and there, I suppose, there definitely is scope to move it out of the US. But yeah, I definitely agree with Paddy that it's the least important major in my eyes. And even look back the last time I was here in 2012, there was such a different leaderboard. We'll remember Rory, but we'll get into the other lads that appeared on it. And I suppose there was a lot of Europeans did well that week. So hopefully for the PGA this week, we might be cheering a few Europeans.
Yeah, Sean, are you going to make it 3-0 in terms of, fourth in the major list?
Oh yeah, look, I think it is, but it's an interesting one with the calendar. I used to think it was good because you'd Firestone the week before, and remember Harrington in 2009 when Wai Yang won, he was in contention both weeks, and he kind of fell away a little bit. But I think it definitely had to move, especially obviously in an Olympic year. But with everything with Ryder Cup on the horizon as well, you don't want golfers to be overworked going into that kind of busy period. And I think it is good that the majors are split early in the season, and I think it makes so much sense to move the PGA out of America, but obviously it's the PGA. They want to keep it on American soil, and it's probably similar to a WGC where it's crying out to be moved around the world, but money talks and every kind of part of sport. But no, definitely looking forward to it. It's a pretty iconic track as well. A lot of people will have probably seen the 1991 Ryder Cup and all the different highlights of that, the war on the shore and stuff. And I remember Rory winning here, and hopefully something like that could maybe inspire Rory to go back and win it. And obviously with the win recently at Quail Hollow, I think it does set up a bit nicer now at this time of year. I think there's a lot more storylines going into the kind of middle of the season, maybe then at the end when players are kind of tired, and a few of them will probably have one eye on the Ryder Cup. So I think it probably is suited here and adds a little bit more value to it. Because I think this time of the season is a really interesting time, because you've got a lot of players who are going to be splitting now and coming back to Europe for a few months or a few weeks before the Open as well. So I think it is a good time in the calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. Paddy, I suppose on the course, Kiawah Island, like for golf fans to cast their minds back to 2012 and Rory winning the US PGA by a staggering 8 shots. So I guess there's no point the rest of the field turning up here then this week.
You might say that, especially now that he's got his head right and he's an extra coach, and his life is much more settled these days, married and has a kid. And I don't know if you guys have kids, but it's definitely settles you, you know. You don't be thinking about golf all the time, but it's golf, and it's the most random major in terms of winners as well. So it sets up nicely for Rory. He's statistically the best golfer in the field, strokes gained, and all that type of gear. But there's a couple of outliers that anyone who's interested in like low money, high odds like me might be getting stuck into. So like in terms of the course, yeah, it's the longest ever. It was the longest ever back into 2012 as well. You know, so it's not just all of a sudden, it always was the longest. And so that's not new. Something people who want to compare, like the World Handicap came into Ireland here. I haven't done mine, I must do. But the slope rating is 144. So if you're, I haven't it roughly right, like my index is like 5. I think I'd be like a 12 straight away.
Double, even more than double.
More than double, right? And that's a bad 12 as well. So like it's incredibly difficult. We won't get too granular. I will. One item that spoke to me was the type of grass, right? And pros like bent grass and this grass and that grass and Poana grass and whatever. But there is, wait for it, there is seashore past Pollum is what is here, which is high in salt. So it's very close to the sea, right? So that's why they put it there. So it's more resistant to the salt in the sea. So why is that important? That's important because there's only two other tournaments that has that type of grass, and that is Puerto Rico and the Mayacoba. And one person in the field, I'm going to get into players. I'll just keep going, right? I'll keep going. I won't take the monopoly in the entire podcast, but I'll keep going. It's because of the grass. Mayacoba, Puerto Rico is the same grass. Victor Hovland's 2 PGA Tour victories are Puerto Rico. Mayacoba. The only other winner on that type of grass is in like the Zoho over in Malaysia somewhere, was Justin Thomas. So there's 2 picks for you, and we might get into in terms of strokes gained and all that later on, but the same 2 names pop up again.
Well, I've my housemate here, and I've listened to him all weekend tell me to back Victor Hovland at 33s, and I know he's got into a small bit of money as well. So I just picturing him listening to this podcast now, to be honest with you, Paddy. So, but yeah, like Shane, on that point, like it is very interesting. I know Jordan Spieth was doing a No Lane Up interview, and I think he said something along the lines of that he likes Bermuda grass, or it should suit him, or he got the grass wrong basically like a week out from the tournament. So it just shows you how unique this tournament is in the calendar.
Yeah, 100%. And Paddy talked about how it's the longest ever champion or major championship course that we're going to see this week. And the other thing is there's 10 holes along the water. The wind is going to play a huge factor. So for me, that's going to be a lot of missed greens. You're not going to have guys hitting 14, 15, 16 greens in regulation. So on top of wanting a great ball striker, a big hitter off the tee for this monster of a course, you're going to need someone high up the list and scrambling, because they aren't going to hit the same level of greens that they do for the other courses throughout the year, the other majors. So again, I suppose not giving away picks too early, but you look at Jordan Spieth this year and he's obviously high in the scrambling charts. And that's where it's going to be an interesting one, that you can call it a bomber's course, but at the end of the day, it's going to be that scrambling if the wind gets up. And I've seen obviously some early forecasts, No Lane Up were tweeting about it earlier, that it is supposed to get up to 25 miles per hour at the weekend. So it could cause for a bit of chaos out there. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't want to give away too early. So hopefully. And I suppose the other thing too is, am I correct in saying this is the first major that we're going to have rangefinders? So if the wind gets up,
I forgot all about that. Yeah.
So now the long course that it is, and if the wind gets up, is that going to play a factor for some of the other players in the field? I suppose you're going to get that yardage if you're hitting it wayward. So it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to look normal if you're going to see Harry Diamond standing there with a rangefinder in his hand. It's going to be a different spectacle. So yeah, there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, Sean, just what the echo of the lad said, 7,876 yards the course is going to be playing this week.
Yeah, I know. I saw Greg Allen put up a tweet and Ian Poulter was responding. So you can imagine the talk in the locker room about this, and the wind, especially, Shane mentioned it there. There's a lot of holes that play into the water, and the wind. I was reading an article on it that a member there can play the course, and if you played it 4 times in a week, could play in 4 different directions. It could end up being a 600-yard hole or a 350-yard hole. It's just that's how strong the wind gusts there, and I think it's going to be very interesting this week, as with all major championships. But I think especially around Key Island, I think having an experienced caddy is really important. And I saw earlier that Max Home has gone with Bonesy McCoy, so that's always a bit of an indicator as well. But no, yeah, it's a really iconic course as well. From even just playing it on Tiger Woods games and the WGT games as well. It is quite an iconic course. So it's a really tough run in the last 4 or 5 holes. They're kind of notoriously tough, and I think you kind of need that in a golf course. And hopefully that it is a competitive finish towards the end, and we get to see some high octane action. Because if there was anything that the Augusta probably missed this year, was maybe the finish. Schauffele kind of threw it away at 16, and you were just hoping that coming up to the last couple of holes that there is kind of a 2-way tie for the lead or something, and something can happen. Even going back to a major, the US Open at Chambers Bay and all the coverage that happened, or all the drama that happened up the 18th there. I think it would be special if something like that could happen as well, especially on a course like that. Anything can happen, really. Even going on the wind, if you get an early clubhouse lead and you're kind of thinking 2 or 3 shots, what happens? And I think the wind can really affect that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose there's no better place to start when we're looking at players than Rory McIlroy, Paddy. And he hadn't won since November 2019, which is an absolutely outrageous stat. And I guess the COVID lockdown.
Rory McIlroy is outrageous. For golf in general, it's
grand.
Not for Richard Bland.
Well, that's and that's a good way of putting it, really, that he's judged on such high standards, because there were good finishes in those 18 months, but just before he got the win, those couple of results and the swing seemed lost. It did seem as an all-time low, so it was victory that came as a surprise to many. I think he went off 20+1.
Yeah, it's never a surprise for Rory winning. I suppose he's frustrating to watch, because we all have such, I suppose, high expectations of him. For me, the level of consistency Rory McIlroy has shown over the last number of years, let alone since he last won, is, along with having a child in the midst of that, has been incredible. So for him to win again, it was only a matter of time. I think the turning point was the Open in Portrush. It kind of came back to him that this matters, and I think he remained the same team for a while. And then if you try the same things over and over and there's no change, that's insanity, right? So he added a couple of key people, and within, I think it's 8 weeks of starting, he's back where he belongs. And with Rory, that tends to open the floodgates, right? So now we're all back up going expectation, but it's every golfer's against the golf course. I know about you, but I wake up different every day, and I'm sure Rory McIlroy does as well. Shane, you play plenty of golf. You'll know I might hit left to right one day, or right to left the next. Generally, shot after shot. But for me, Rory McIlroy is the person to beat. He statistically leads all the stats this year. There's only a couple of players who come close. One is Mr. Spieth, the other is Mr. Schauffele. So it's the same names, but again, it'll all come down to what type of course will suit who. But yeah, you can't. It's Rory McIlroy's to lose if on paper.
Yeah, and it's just like you said. Even though we play golf at such a lower level than Rory McIlroy, Shane, he still seems to have the same problems that every other golfer has. But it was amazing seeing him win 2 weeks ago, and that's almost the perfect time to win. You don't want to win the week before. He's had a week off, and he's preparing for this major. But it still comes that he hasn't won a major in 7 years, and I don't know if he's contended in that many, considering he's Rory McIlroy. A lot of backdoor top tens in there.
Yeah, I won't lie, I'm extremely on the fence on Rory this week. It's, as you mentioned, it is the best time to win 2 weeks out. He broke the duck 18 months after his last victory on tour. And I know he won here back in 2012, was that he went bogey free for his last 23 holes, and he knows the place well. Obviously, he's going to bring back some fond memories for him. But I just think there's so many ways we can look at it. There's the win 2 weeks ago, how spectacular that was. Great to see him back. He, as Paddy said, he's a new perspective on the game with the child, and I suppose things are starting to come together for him again this year. But then there's also just the issue, I find, the shots gained around the greens. He ranks 91st on the PGA Tour. And I just think that's going to be huge this week, unless he puts on a ball striking phenomenon that we know he can do. But I just think you look as well, this championship throws up such random winners. You look back to when it was here in 2012, there was just names like David Lynn was runner-up, Peter Hansen, Carl Peterson, Blake Adams all made the top 10. I think it's just going to be wide open. And if the course does show its teeth like it can, I think any can happen. And like we have mentioned, the length of it was at over 7,800 yards, but it's not going to play at that every day. There's going to be days where the tees are up. I presume tournament organizers are going to be well up there with what the weather predictions are, and that it is going to, if the wind shows its teeth, it's not going to play as long as it is. And yeah, I can't see. I'm just not fully down on Rory winning this week. I think there's just so many factors, and there is just that randomness of it, of who it's thrown up. And I'm hoping that we'll have that same European buzz like we did nearly 10 years ago. But I can't agree with you guys. I'm thinking that Rory's the man this week.
Yeah, like, I think
Champion Hooley there says his putting drops off big time. So just the grass, right? The seashore past Palm, right? I love grass, but when you're putting on that type of grass, makes the below average putters, it's easier for them to put on. So people like Rory and that leaderboard from 2012, all decent ball strikers. But if you look at the averages, below average putters, a lot of them love grass.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean,
what is garden, Paddy?
Sean, what about that kind? Like his wedges were like definitely improved 2 weeks ago. On the putting, like, is that a fair comment, joke aside, on like when the pressure comes on the putting? Because it does seem like it there's a bit of a Lee Westwood about him at times when in big tournaments. I'm not talking about like every day in PGA. I'm just talking about on a Sunday. Do you fancy Rory over an 8-footer? To keep himself in the hunt?
Yeah, look, I think it's all kind of feel and confidence with him. I think, I've heard stuff that he's doing work with Bob Rotella as well and people like that. So it does seem like he's kind of got his house in order. And we spoke in the Masters preview saying about, having Pete Cowan. And I thought, look, if there's any time that I'm going to fancy Roy for Augusta, probably came too soon for him. But I definitely think it's obviously a massive year for him. And I think he would have really hurt a couple of years ago at Portrush. I think Paddy's right there. I think that would have shocked him to the core. I think that would have been a kind of a life-changing moment in front of him, and the embarrassment of it, and the most un-Rory McIlroy thing you'll ever see. And it was right off the first tee there. The thing with Rory is, he's one of them. If he plays his best, he's going to be there or thereabouts. At the moment, and what he has done over the last year or two, when he's not playing his best, he's not as big as a threat as he once was. Normally with Rory, even if he was 7 or 8 behind, and this is what he did so well at Quail Hollow, you'd think he'd be out of the tournament, and he kind of came back with Quail Hollow, and that's what I think the best players in the world are so good at. Like Justin Thomas's win at the Players came from nowhere and just took that golf tournament and was there on Sunday when it mattered, coming down towards the finish. And I think if Rory starts getting back in that mindset, especially even going further on, where he's always in a golf tournament, he's not just there to kind of get a top 20 or a top 15, because he doesn't need the money. Money's not an issue to him. It's about winning again. And that's what I think impressed me about Quail Hollow, that he had that little kind of a poor start, but he still found a way of coming through the field and winning. And look, you can write Rory on, or you can make it look like a fool, or you can make it look like a genius if you say he's going to win. You just don't know with Rory. But I certainly wouldn't be fancying him at 10-1, certainly not. But I'd love to see him back up there. I think it'd be great for golf, and be great for Irish golf, obviously with hopefully an Olympic year as well. But No, I think I'd have a few other players before Rory.
Yeah, I forgot you'd actually put him up for the Masters, Sean. So you're
No,
a few weeks
I
early.
didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't put him as my official tip, but I said if there was ever a time, I went with JT, and even that didn't go well either.
Yeah, well, listen, I went Jordan Spieth, and just on Jordan Spieth, Paddy, like I'd be big on him this week. Like I actually didn't realize he had COVID till I don't think anyone did till he brought it up in an interview last week, which is because I just presumed he was taking the few weeks off after the Masters, but I haven't listened to him no laying up. And I don't know about you, but when I listen to any interview or any sports person, I kind of instantly go, well, this person's unbelievable, they're going to win everything. But he just seems so more focused and so more in such a better headspace than he was a few months ago, and he's definitely the form player in the world right now.
Absolutely. Like returning champion Morikawa, he's renowned as the best iron player on tour. He is second only to one person this year, and that's Jordan Spieth. So we go on about Jordan Spieth holding 50 footers and holding all around him on the putting green, but he's statistically the best iron player, and statistically in Kiowa, the best player who approaches the green, it generally wins the tournament. So you got to look at Jordan Spieth, and then, well, the COVID factor maybe not, but he'll be focused on recovery anyway all week, anyway, as the top guys do. So yeah, like for me, it's a 2-horse race. If you're looking at the paper, 2-horse race, McIlroy, Spieth. So you know where my big money is going this week is on those two thoroughbreds.
It's the way to do it sometimes, just back the favorites win. Shane, in fairness, like, and Paddy made a good point there, and I noticed in the Masters, like, his ball striking was phenomenal, and I think throughout the tournament, I think there was 55 players that played all 4 days, and he was 54th in strokes gained putting for the week. So he just seemed to have a cold day or cold week with the putter that cost him the tournament.
Yeah, I remember that interview you're referencing, and he said that he sees the Masters as a missed opportunity, that he was able to finish as high as he did and ranking so poorly in putting. Because it's going to be huge. I suppose every time the Masters comes around, we talk about Rory in the career Grand Slam. And this week we have Jordan Spieth going for his own career Grand Slam. So I suppose it's going to be huge as the hype builds, as the week goes on. There's going to be a lot of chat around that. But then, as Paddy said, the form that he's in this year, you look in his start since Christmas, he's only finished outside the top 15 twice. A missed cut to start the year at the Farmers, and a tied 48 at the Players. He has that win in there, so he is in serious form. He is someone that I'm all in on this week. Huge Spieth fan, and I would love to see him get over the line for that career Grand Slam. And as we said, that like it's not only his putting this year that's been so impressive, it's been his all-round game. So if he can get that putter hot like we know he can, then I think he's a serious chance, and he's definitely someone that I'm going to be putting a close eye on this week, and I'm going to have my Spieth jersey on.
Yeah, so there's me, Sean, thinking I was coming, not necessarily a bit of an angle, but, you know, Jordan Spieth, but the lads are just agreeing with me now. This is boring. Tell me why Jordan Spieth won't win this week.
I think the pressure of doing a Grand Slam, and I think the fact that obviously because it's Augusta for Rory and he goes back to the same place, it's the narrative every year when you think of Rory at Augusta with Jordan, that can kind of go under the radar. But you know, if he takes the 36-hole lead or the 54-hole lead and everything is all of a sudden, it's, you know, can we get another Grand Slam member? I think the pressure could get a little bit too much for him. But you know, I watched him on Saturday night, and he made a couple of bogeys on, I think it was 16 and 17, and then or 15 and 16, and then he walked in a par putt on 17. I was like, this guy's unbelievable. And then when, like, you know, when he's gone to the 18th, the par 5, I was like, oh, this fella could even make an eagle. And the way he just makes that putt off the green at 18 is like this. You know, he's a one of a kind. I mean, when he want, like, it's the same with there's probably 7 or 8 golfers when they want to play their best. I mean, they're just no one can compete with them. And I think with Jordan, he's a little bit unlucky recently, and I think the thing with him, he's been in contention so often, and obviously having the win the week before Augusta helps him. But the fact that he's so consistent and how he's playing at the moment, you have to give him a right good chance. But you know, I think I just see Emmett's point there about playing Texas. Obviously, he's a local lad there as well. Maybe that pressure does coming in, but I just think especially if he takes the 36 or the 54-hole lead, and everyone around the world is talking about this guy could be the next Grand Slam member, and you know, it'd be an incredible. I think it'd be big for golf as well, and especially for Jordan, because it's like Rory. These golfers get to such highs, but they also get to such lows, and to think what Jordan Spieth has gone through the last couple of years and to come out the other side would be a real testament to him, because people were writing him off. And I remember, I think it was the Farmers Insurance Open, watching him in a featured groups about 2 or 3 years ago, and I was just like, this guy's lost. Like, there's no way he can get back to the level. And there's one thing coming back and competing again, but to be competing in the big tournaments, and you're right about Augusta. I think for him and Justin Thomas, I think they would have been the two guys who walked away from Augusta most disappointed that they weren't within striking distance come Sunday, because I think they both played well enough to be there, just a couple of mistakes each. But I think it'd be unbelievable if we get a Jordan Spieth, Rory McIlroy group, within the third round or the fourth round. I think it would just be electric.
Yeah, we always do this though. We build up. It's usually 2 or 3 golfers per tournament. Like, Bryson's not in the picture at the moment, like, for some reason, just because we're just talking about Jordan Spieth and Rory. But just maybe
I was going to ask, like, where's Bryson? Where's the world number one? Like, we're not talking about them.
Well, let's talk about them. The floor is yours.
Bryson, yeah, he's long as off the tee, but he's negative putting this year, right? Like, negative. He's losing shots. He's not gaining them at Pro Level, which is mad. And Dustin Johnson, I think he's spending too much time with the wife to be. Maybe she's a big distraction, as she will be for anyone. But it's Dustin Johnson, but he's more frustrating than Rory McIlroy. If you're American, you're like, he's nowhere number one. He should be winning all around him. But like, he could just turn around. He could turn around on Thursday morning, and he's fit to go hot in terms of he could shoot 63, 64, and he's liable to do that. He can just switch it on and that's it. Clear the mechanism. No one else has a chance. But yeah, Bryson might have to bulk up and eat a few more protein bars or whatever. But it just shows the distance isn't everything. It got him his win. A lot of people would do it just for the one major, but that's my piece and two of them. Like Dustin, you don't know. He's one you'd back on a Friday just before the cut line, or on a Saturday morning, depending. You don't know what Dustin Johnson's going to show up.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like it almost felt like since he started the year so well, and he's just kind of tailed off in recent weeks. Shame, like Bryson, like I know, like, to talk going into November's Masters, it's all we could talk about. And it died down a little bit before this year's Masters, and it seems no one's talking about Bryson now except Bryson, which is a weird kind of quirk.
Yeah, this week I'm not feeling Bryson either. What was it? Just a week on in Texas at the AT&T, Byron Nelson, I think I read that he was number one for shots gained off the tee and still finished tied 55th or something outrageous like that. So it just shows it's not all about off the tee. So yeah, I think he is obviously, yes, he's such a phenomenal athlete that he could pull it off, but no, I wouldn't be putting my money on him. And then it's the same with DJ. He pulled out last week with an injury. Was it a knee injury? And yeah, I know you can say beware of the injured golfer, but it is quite worrying that if you're not playing the week before because of an injury, it's not a good sight. Especially you saw Brooks Koepka played the Masters injured, and it didn't go well for him. So now there's the two guys who definitely don't have me sold on them either. I'll agree with you, Paddy.
Yeah, Sean, maybe Bryson, Dustin, or where do you want to go in the rest of the top market before maybe we talk about Shane? The comment here saying John Rahm started his baby bounce in round 4 of the Masters and he can carry it on. I've heard worse angles, in fairness.
Yeah, I think with John Rahm is, I kind of said this. Remember after the Masters recap from November, you asked me how many majors he's going to win. And I was like, he could just be one of these golfers that takes. And he appears to be too good a golfer not to win a big major soon or a massive golf tournament soon. But the same thing could have been said about Colin Montgomery or Sergio Garcia or Lee Westwood. And I just think until he wins one, he could end up like a Ricky Fowler. And obviously, with Ricky, he's had a brilliant career, but you always feel like they've underachieved. And with John Rahm, I think he needs to win a big major soon. Obviously, he's got the game, and on his world rankings would tell you he deserves to be up there at the head of the market. I think he's one of those golfers that will just always play well and will always be, you know, a top 4, a top 5. And you look at an event sometimes, you'll just be like, oh, geez, he's tied for 7th or something. You'd never have seen him. But I do think he needs to win a big one. And I think the thing with Jon Rahm is, I think he's spoken before about being a little bit frustrated with how he's played in majors, that he hasn't necessarily got to, you know, the 70th hole or the 71st hole where he's properly in an event and he has the lead going into the last couple. And I think if he gives himself a chance, I think he'll have every chance of winning a big one. But I'm not sure. I think maybe when we get to Torrey Pines, I'll be more confident in him. Obviously, having won his first PGA Tour event there a couple of years ago, so I'd be more confident with him there. With DJ and Bryson, I think the lads are right. You don't know what guy, you know, you don't know what they're going to show up at. I think with Bryson, he frustrates me a lot. So every time I kind of see him tied 54th or whatever, I go, it's never gonna work. And then you forget what he did at Winged Foot. So I think a lot of people forget he's actually the US Open champion. Or certainly I do. But again, you don't know what he's gonna do with him and DJ. You know, these two guys could rock up and shoot the lights out between them and have a kind of a battle for the ages. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I suppose the last thing on Bryson, like, you know, he won the Arnold Palmer, tied third the Players. And then, you know, 3 of the last 4 starts have been really bad, but there's a tied 9th in there. So interesting on Ricky Fowler. I just looked up his world ranking. Anyone want to guess where he's ranked in the world right now?
Is he like 230th?
No, not that bad. Not that bad.
No.
Jeez, no. 128th. But it just shows you though, like if someone tells you like in 4 years' time Jon Rahm's gonna be 128th, just as an example, it just shows you that the good golf doesn't.
And poor old Ricky, dude, Nick Faldo was slagging him there, I heard, and Ricky had to do
There's no need for that now, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of looked, and I was just looking through the price earlier, and I said, Ricky Fowler, I mean, he's bound to do something again soon. But I think with those golfers, it's similar to Jordan Spieth. You can just get yourself in a rut, and there's probably no real way out of it, unless you find a new coach or you find a new way of doing things. But you know, that's the problem with Jon Rahm. You know, Jon Rahm will be as anxious as anyone to win a big major soon, and a big tournament, you know, like a Players or a big career defining tournament for him. And I think he has to find that soon. And maybe the baby bounce from Augusta could help.
Yeah, Shane, we'll probably go to you then for Shane Lowry then to start off with. Are you kind of looking at him as an outside pick this week? You know, he's always seems to be playing solid-ish golf at times, but is there a second major in Shane Lowry? Really is probably a good question to start with.
For me, I would have always said Shane Lowry was the guy that just pops up. You know, he'll get his win every 6 to 12 months, and a big tournament at that, as we all know, between the majors and the WGC. But this year, just looking at Lowry, he has the same amount of missed cuts as he does top 10s, and that's 2 each. I said previously that I think it's a huge course, that scrambling is very important. But looking at his putting here, his shots gained putting on the PGA Tour is 147th. I personally, again, going to be the negative guy on Lowry. I don't see him doing it. I don't see him competing this week. It's a monster of a golf course, and I just don't think this is one that suits him. We know if the conditions get bad, he's the kind of guy you'd like to see out there. You saw from Portrush that Saturday. But again, just this week, I don't think he's going to turn it around. He's been having a mixed start to the year. Obviously, there's a huge talk about him making Harrington's Ryder Cup team for September. And I think there's a huge amount of pressure around that. And I just don't think he's going to turn it around this week. I think there's too much pressure on him, and he hasn't performed since Christmas. So I sadly as well, to finish my point, you asked, do I think there's a second major in him? And I don't think there is a second major in him.
I think it's this week.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
So the putting thing, the grass, right? We don't need to cover it again. People who perform well at Harbour Town, which is a couple of events ago, do well in Kiowa Island. Shane Lowry loves a difficult golf course. That's 2 ticks. The grass, the 3rd tick. The around the green stat is the second most important stat here. And we all know Shane Lowry is pretty adept with the old lob wedge. So that's why I'd be picking him. In terms of pressures for Ryder Cup, he'll be on the Ryder Cup team. He's out every day with Mr. Harrington, free every tournament, having the crack. And I don't know if you follow his social media, but he'll be on the Ryder Cup team. Even with results like in the Players 8, in the Masters, in the RBC. So he's performed well in top tournaments this year. So Ryder Cup, he's on it. There will be weather this week. So Lowry's worth a punt.
Yeah, Sean, I suppose you don't do yeah. That's I wasn't expecting that in Shane Lowry, but Sean, I suppose you don't do like dive bombs into your mate's pool and then they don't pick you for the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, no, I just, as soon as you said that, I just thought Darren Clark a couple of years ago and Lee Westwood missing that putt to lose to Ryan Moore. That just kind of came back in my head. But no, I think there's actually a big week for a lot of players because it's, now I'm not saying it's as overly similar to Whistling Straits, but it's that same kind of golf course that you might find a kind of a linksy American style courses, kind of similar in that regard. But I think it's a massive week for Shane because I think how fancy his chances. Torrey Pines, will it overly suit him? I'm not sure. I think we might see one of the big 4 or 5 golfers win that there at the US Open, especially. And then obviously he's going to go to Royal St. George, I think it is, to defend his Open. So I think that could be a week where he either does really well or he kind of succumbs to the pressure. So I think this is a big chance for him. I think poor Harrington's going to be praying that Shane gives him some sort of rope to pick him because he doesn't want to be picking someone that's 150th in the world or not that bad, but his form is he can't pick someone like that. And obviously Harrington's got a big call to make with someone like Francesco Molinari, who let's not forget was the hero of Paris a few years ago, and his performances recently do leave a lot to be desired. So, if you're looking ahead, I'm sure Harrington would want better circumstances for some of his big players. And obviously Rory's a big plus for him, and Justin Rose at Augusta would be another plus. The thing with Lowry is, look, he's such a good golfer as well around the greens. And I think that obviously judging by the stats is massive, but you can't legislate for some of his putting recently and the form of his putting, and to be 140th in strokes gained putting is atrocious. And the weeks that he's putted well and he's made a few big putts, he's still missing an awful lot there. He's still 3 or 4 shots back from being in proper contention. And I think, look, his putting will eventually come, and he's gone left hand over right and he's reversed his grip and stuff. And I'm not sure how helpful that will be, but certainly, I mean, if he puts well, the way he's hitting the ball at the moment, he's very happy, I think, with his driving as well. He'll give himself a chance. I think there's probably, I'm not sure if there's another major in him, but there's definitely another big contention in him. He's contended at a US Open. He's contended, obviously he's won the Open. I do think there still is another big contention in him for him. And if he can get over the line, brilliant. But I would be kind of fancying him, maybe not at the price he is now, but considering the last leaderboard in 2012 with a few Europeans up there, I don't think he'll be far away if he can put well. That is, I mean, if he puts as he has been doing, he won't be anywhere.
Yeah, so we're going to move on maybe to the tips or any other selections or any other golfers you have fancy. And I suppose Emma Deeney has a comment here. Should John Catlin be Fav? That's 350 to 1 shot John Catlin there, cool. Emmett. But in fairness, Emmett loves a long price, and they always kind of do well. Like they might get a birdie the first or something, and then the bogeys just start tumbling. But Paddy, you've kind of probably looked at the field. Is there anyone you haven't mentioned that you're kind of looking at this week?
Abraham Answer. He is, once I can get the Rolodex out, he is sneaky long off the tee, and he's 4th in strokes gained off the tee this year. And he has possibly the hottest short game on tour. His ball striking is unbelievable. So he's definitely there, and I'll keep it short. The second guy is Sam Burns, who is possibly the hottest, streakiest golfer at the moment, has a win under the belt, and is strokes gained everywhere except around the greens, and his win was from hitting greens. So he's long and he's accurate. So as long as he doesn't hit too many greens, you'll see Sam Burns up there.
Yeah, Sean, I suppose we had Shane Sexton on the podcast on Football Predictions, and he wrote off Sam Burns saying he wouldn't win on the tour. and since then he has a win, and this could be his first major, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking on Saturday to see his name up there, and it was similar with Higo on the European Tour. Like, I mean, how these golfers can be just so streaky when they want to be and be shooting the lights out and still in contention for big tournaments. But I think it could be a big old ass to win the PGA. But obviously, like some of the names that have won it, a lot of first time winners as well of these events. Obviously, Brooks has won a couple as well. But it'd be interesting to see, is there any young, because you got to remember the age. Morikawa is coming straight out of college. Like, these guys are fearless. Some of these players, and obviously I'm not going to see Matthew Wolff, I don't think, but some of these players that are coming out of college, they've no fear. There's so much quality, and they're taking the PGA Tour by storm. A lot of them are, and the European Tour, to be fair.
Yeah, Shane, for those watching, get your likes and get a comment in on who's going to win the PGA. For you, anyone that we haven't mentioned or you haven't mentioned that you're kind of looking at this week, you seem to have written off the Irish Challenge, so I'm expecting a good substitute in their place.
He's going to pick a Brit. He'll pick a Brit. What's in that?
Lee Westwood.
You got me, Paddy. Yeah, I think this is a real 50-50 one, but I think he's too good not to start contending in a major soon, and that's Tyrrell Hatton. I know he missed 3 out of 3 cuts at the majors in 2020, but he's 5 top 10s in majors. 5 are either Open or US PGA. The other one was at a US Open at Shinnecock Hills. So he likes a link style golf course. This is as close to an American links as you're going to get. 10 holes on the ocean. So it's time to start making a move in major championships. He has a win back in January in the Abu Dhabi Championship. And if you look at the majors, I know I mentioned the first leaderboard that was there in 2012, but 22 of the last 24 major winners have come from inside the world's top 25 that week. There hasn't been a shock major winner in quite some time. So yeah, I'm going to go with Tyrrell Hatton, and I'm going to big him up this week.
Yeah, I like it. See, the problem on these kind of podcasts, someone makes a case and you're like, yeah, I'm going to back Answer now after this podcast. I'm going to back Hatton. I'm going to back Sam Burns. I'm going to back John Catlin. But Sean, that's a very interesting stat. The 22 out of the last 24 major winners have come from inside the top 25.
Yeah, no, you do get the kind of romantic eyes, and it could well be, Shane Lowry probably was one of them. So like it is quite a bizarre thing to kind of think about sometimes when you do look at it. And DJ winning in November as world number 1, how often has that happened? It is quite staggering going back. I've kind of gone with I've gone with a couple here. I think obviously Mark Leishman is someone who plays in very difficult conditions. Wayne Riley always talks about him growing up and some of the courses in Australia where you wake up one morning and it's completely different wind direction and stuff like that. And he was a lot better at Augusta, and I think he seems to have settled down. Obviously, he had a few issues in his personal life, but he's also one of the most likable guys when you hear him interviewed and stuff. So I think Mark Leishman's always a good person to root for, and someone who I love in major championships, who I just love in general, is Brandon Grace. Now, Paddy mentioned Puerto Rico earlier on the show. He obviously won at Puerto Rico this year, and hasn't played well in majors recently. He has the record, I think 62 was it Troon a few years ago. He's just a brilliant golfer. I love Brendan Grace, and someone who loves playing in the wind as well. So I'm gonna take a punt on Brandon Grace. He's one of them. He'll either be 6 or 7 over, or he could well be there. But I see a few of the comments coming in. But I think the thing is, for the worst thing with majors like this, you could make a case for any one of those, the top 25 to win, or any one of the outsiders like John Cantlin. Looks a great shout. 3-time winner on the European Tours, had a great few years heading into his first major. But I think that stat, the stat that winning in your first time round in a major. So I think 350 to 1 is a pretty good price for John.
Yeah, Paddy, I know you wanted to talk about Cam Smith, did you? Just because he's got a serious head of lettuce, and anyone who has a head of lettuce like that, he's obviously laid back, doesn't care too much about the game, which you need to at that level. But he's a serious baller. He's always up there at Augusta, so his ball striking is on point, his putting's on point, and Augusta is as long as any of them. So yes, my not so sneaky pick. So I'll pick like 5 or 6 big money on big money being a tenner to win on Rory and Spieth, and the E2A money, Sam Burns, Answer, and my guy Cam.
Yeah, you gave Hovland a shout, but he wouldn't make your shortlist.
Oh, he's on my shortlist. The shortlist is 5. The shortlist is 5. He's on it.
For you, Shane, then, so what's your kind of final selections there? Your main bet's probably going to be Tyrrell Hatton by the sounds of it.
Yeah, so I've been kind of small now this week. Of the 4 I picked at the Masters, the only one to finish in the top 8 was Patrick Reed. So I've narrowed it down, and he wants to be that guy rooting for Patrick Reed. But yeah, going into the PGA this week, I have 2 picks, and it's going to be Jordan Spieth and Tyrrell Hatton. I'm confident one of the 2 of them. I think with what Jordan Spieth's gone through, it'd be nice for that fairy tale for him to get the career Grand Slam this week. And also for Brit Tyrrell Hatton, I think that it's time for an Englishman to start competing in the majors again soon.
They've had their day.
Yeah. For me, I'm probably agreeing with the Jordan Spieth shout, to be fair. And I was kind of looking at Dan Berger, Sean, similar to what I said at the Masters, just copy and paste, and he just didn't turn up. Augusta might not be his course, but copy and paste. If anyone wants to listen back to what I said about Dan Berger, they'd be my 2 kind of tentative fancies. But yeah, for you, Sean, you've kind of gone through your main ones. But anything else? Last thoughts, really?
Maybe if I was to go short price one, I think with someone like Patrick Reed, you've got you. I wouldn't say a safe bet. You're someone who will never give up, and you speak about chippers. He's an unbelievable short game around the greens, and really event of really good ball strike as well. Can control his flight, which I think is obviously key with the wind. And yeah,
doesn't get caught cheating either, so he's got that going for him.
No, he's not the nicest guy to back, I know, but it's maybe worth keeping an eye on. And someone I'm very interested in seeing, and obviously he's had a few good weeks recently, and obviously they got to the playoff in the St. Jude's, was Charles Schwartz. I think it's brilliant to see someone like him back playing at a reasonably high level, because everyone forgets that he obviously won the Masters, but he had a couple of really good seasons on the European Tour before that. And there's another fella I really like, and I know Chris Kirk at 125 to 1. He just he's kind of very familiar to David Lynn or Chris Lynn for me. I just feel like he's or David Lynn it is. I think it's someone else. Very similar kind of look as well. But and obviously his story is inspirational as well. So I'd love to see him up there competing and maybe doing a Rich Beam on it or something. And I think Rich is still in the field as well or something. So it'd be one to look out for.
So we'll never hear the end of it from Sky if Rich is contending. But yeah, speaking of Sky, Paddy, final thoughts. What's your plan for the week? Are you one of them that watches wall-to-wall coverage? Do you tune in Saturday, Sunday? What's the plan?
I'll tune in, I'll keep abreast of it through the app, even though it's a pretty poor app, but it's real time. So I'll just keep track and have my favourites. I have a couple of screens up here, so work will be on that one, and Sky Sports Plus will be on that one, or Sky Go. But yeah, I really tune into stuff kind of Saturday evening and really like the last back now, because when you have kids, you have to pay some attention to them. So, but yeah, Saturday night, Sunday night, that's where I'll be, a bag of Doritos and maybe something stronger.
Well, depending how the picks are going, of course. But yeah, Shane, what about you? Thursday to Sunday?
Yeah, so I'll be here working from home, so I'll be watching the golf from Thursday on. Tough at the weekends, might be a few distractions. Your words, Paddy, not mine, but I agree. So yeah, I'll be watching it all weekend. The distractions will be at the weekend, I suppose. Go out, play a bit of golf, whatever, and back in Kinsale for the week. So looking forward to getting out to Kinsale Golf Club. But yeah, I will definitely Thursday, Friday be my big days, and try and sneak it in the evenings after golf at the weekend.
Yeah, Sean, I know what you're like on major week. It kind of takes over.
Yeah, no, I love it. And obviously, the worst thing I find with golf coverage is because the commentators say the same thing, and you just hear it repeated. Like Paul McGinley will whip out. It's always brilliant stats, but you hear the same lines about different things. But I think maybe that's what Augusta as well. It just feels like every year has been saying. But I forgot to mention, and I saw an article on it. Kevin Kisner is a South Carolina man, and the course is in South Carolina. And I know a few, big Twitter personalities are best mates to them, and they're always big for a big major from him. So maybe this week could be it for Kevin Kisner. But no, that look, major season is brilliant, and it's a massive summer for golf, and golf is probably in a difficult position as well with controlling the ball and how many yards. And I think this would be a massive test. I mean, if Bryson is hitting a 480 or making holes look a joke with the wind, could just be a disaster for the US PGA.
Yeah, I'm going to shamelessly take Paddy's comment in the live chat here, there in our little private chat here. It's like drinking game. Every time they say longest course in PGA history on Sky, and if you're sitting there for 5 or 6 hours, you're going to hear it a few times. But as Paul McGinley says, as always, it'll come down to a bit of match play at the end. Isn't that right, Sean?
Yeah, a bit of match play.
But listen, that's it for the US PGA preview. Thanks for watching on YouTube. It'll be up with a podcast if you've missed a little bit of it. At Tackling Sport and social media, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd really appreciate it. But my thanks to Shane from Talk Birdie to me.
Thanks very much, guys. Looking forward to doing it again soon sometime.
Absolutely, and nice easy name this time. Thanks to Paddy from PaddyTalks Golf.
No, thank you, boys. You're doing great stuff. And let's enjoy the golf this week from the armchair. And if we can get out and play a few holes ourselves, even better.
Absolutely. And you can follow the lads. I'll link all the social media. And to you, Sean, thanks a million. And hopefully enjoy the golf. As I said, at Tackling Sports social media. We'll be back on Thursday.